everyone. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Hi. Nice to see you here. So great to have you here. And down in I feel like we're at Hollywood Squares right now. Doesn't that remind you? For those of you old enough, I'd like to say thank you to those of you that are here tonight. Some familiar faces, thank you for joining me. And some new faces too. I'm so glad you're here. Ray Bernard, my friend, who's in the lower left-hand corner for me, is going to be operating my Zoom screens tonight. Ray is an award-winning writer, all is in his own right, and a great artist. So thanks, Ray, for doing this. He's what we call my wingman. Thank you. I promised you tonight the 3 keys to ignite your inner artist. And before we start, I'd like to have you look down at the chat. We've already been chatting away, haven't we? But I'm going to be asking you some questions, and I'd like you to pop a yes in the chat and answer them for me. That would be great. I don't want to just talk at you for an hour. I want to hear what you have to say, and that's the way that we're going to communicate tonight. And some of the answers to the questions are going to be more personal, because we're going to be talking about our purpose as artists. And that's something very close to our hearts. So let's just agree to have that kind of stay within our group, okay? I have a question for you. Are you a creative person who feels like you need to be or could be even more creative or do something more with your art than you're doing? Pop a yes in the chat if that's true for you. Anybody feel that way? How about you, Tina Wilson? Tina's up there. Tina is my friend. Tina is my best friend. Thank you for being here, Tina. And let me see if I can unmute her. Tina's been blind since birth, and I don't think she can use the chat. But she has something like 8 agents across the country, and she's a voiceover artist. You see Tina there. Tina, I don't know if I can. There she is. And I think someone else came in, Ray, if you could let them in. That would be great. Okay, good. Tina, I don't know if you can hear me, but glad you're here. Okay, we're going to continue. I'd like to ask you this next question. If you'd like to make that transformation to finally feel your life more fulfilled by doing your art or doing more with the art that you're doing now, are you ready to do something different, something a little bit bigger with your art? Pop a yes in the chat. Nikki says, I'm creative, but always interested in boosting my creativity. Amen to that, Nikki. Oh, good. Susie said that music is calming. Thank you. I love that little song. Reminds me of the flame in our hearts as an artist. Okay, now here is a major question that I have for you. Please pop up your answer in the chat. What is an artist? How do you define an artist? How would you define that? Anybody? Art is a work in progress, Gregory says. Of course. But Gregory, how do you define the one who makes it? The originator, the creator. How would you define an artist? Do you ever stop and think about that?
Don't really have to think about it.
Because you are. This guy's got 50 pieces of art. Very interesting guy here. We were talking before. Very nice to have you here. You're quite an artist there, Gregory.
It isn't just 50 pieces.
Oh, what am I missing?
I probably wrote that wrong. It's rather closer to 250 pieces.
Oh my God, it only said 50. That's amazing.
Well, I'm quite prolific.
Tell them what your genre is. What do you do art about? What do you create?
Contemporary art of the American West.
Wow, I can't wait to see some of that. Also, Susie Stockholm is here. Look at the art behind her head. It's absolutely beautiful. She's got a healing course for people that have been through a PTSD experience, or I'm working with her on marketing it to adoptees, which is a wonderful project, Susie, that I'm honored to work on with you. Let's see if we
Thank
got the
you.
answers. An artist is someone who is creative with painting, ceramic, and quilts, Patty says. Fantastic. An artist, our Barbara says, is a person who wants to experience, interact with, and express via an art form. Love that one. Hi, Gabriella's here, one of my wonderful acting students. Hi, Gabriella, I'm glad you're here. Well, I have to tell you something. I believe, and you're going to think this sounds a little funny, I believe all people are artists. And you might say, oh, come on, Pam. How could that be? What about the person that's digging a ditch? Or I'm from Detroit. I've had a lot of relatives and friends work on the line doing the same thing for 30 years. But I still say all people are artists. But if you define an artist as a being, a spiritual being, or a person who is just a bit more alive and a bit more creative than the rest, you look at the others who aren't doing it well, they just haven't woken up from their slumber yet. But I truly believe all people at heart are artists. Raise your hand if you've done an art in the past. You can go like this or use the little reaction button down there. Have you done an art in the past but aren't doing it now? Anybody here doing that in that circumstance? Okay. Now, raise your hand if you're not as active as an artist or creative person as you used to be. Anybody here not? Okay, so Susie says not as often as I want. Okay, but yet you're painting. Gregory, did I see your hand go up?
Yes.
Okay, so you just got to get painting a little more and you want to get your art out there. I understand. Okay, cool. All right, I've got an interesting quote for you guys. Did you know that I once heard from an incredible philosopher who I love that as early as 2.5 years old, as a child, we know in our hearts what our basic purpose is going to be for our lifetime, what that basic purpose is going to be. And for an artist, that's usually something super creative. And here's another interesting quote by, I bet you're familiar with this, some of you, great artist and writer Julia Cameron, who I consider a mentor of mine. She says, your inner artist is a child and you have to protect it. It's interesting because one philosopher says, we know at 2.5 years old what our basic purpose is. And Julia Cameron says that we have to protect it because our artist is an inner child. So both of them imply that being an artist and having that purpose is something tender from a very young age. Now, maybe you had a creative purpose when you were little and it was all on fire, but you were afraid to state it because you didn't want it taken away from you, or you didn't want it flattened like roadkill. I don't know about some of you, but I see Nikki laughing. I guarantee you that if you can spot your basic creative purpose as an artist and get total clarity on that personal purpose to you, it's one of the first keys to open up the door being even more creative. Ray, let's put up that first key. Okay. Let's see, it usually takes a second for that to come up there. Hi, Angela, glad to see you here. Ray, can we put up that first key? I don't know where my slides are, but I hope he's trying. There it is. Had a little lag on that one. Okay, the first key to igniting or reigniting your purpose as an artist is recognizing and clarifying your basic purpose as an artist. And we all have a very individualized and special one. And Ray, if you can come back to me, that would be great. You know, my basic purpose as an artist just hit me. I went to a great Detroit public school, and I was walking across a beautiful little stage in our school auditorium with great mahogany seats. Anybody old enough to remember those? And I was all by myself, and I looked across all those seats and I went, oh my gosh, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be on stage. And I must have been like 7 years old. And I knew, I felt at home. And I felt like when I was on stage, it was what I was supposed to be doing or what God wanted me to do. Pop a yes in the chat if there's something creative you swore you were going to do when you were a little kid and you were going to do this when you grew up. Something that lifted you up and set your heart on fire. Does anybody remember something like that from when you were little? Just pop a yes in the chat if that was you. Linda, I saw you shaking your head. Ah, I saw it first, and there's her yes. What did you want to do, Linda? Do you mind me telling you? She's a very accomplished woman. Unmute yourself and tell us. Can you unmute?
Oh,
What
sorry.
did you want to do when you were little that was creative, that set your heart on fire?
I wanted to be a singer.
Great. Are you still singing?
I never became a singer. I became a drummer instead.
Well, that's totally cool. Good for you. Do you still drum?
I do.
All right.
It lights up my life.
All right. I love it. That's fantastic. All right.
Thank you.
Now, if you're somebody who had that creative purpose and you're not doing it now, ask yourself, would it have made your life more fulfilling if you would have done it more or you would have followed that dream? Would it have? Okay, I'm going to take a moment and tell you something that happened to me about, because the moment we really clarify that artistic purpose is, because sometimes it can get really buried, that moment can cause a lot of magic to happen in us. I'm very lucky because I'm a filmmaker and I've had my films seen by millions of people on PBS. They picked up a couple of my films and hopefully a third one that Tina Wilson is a voiceover on. But it wasn't always like it that I had millions of people that saw my work. But there was a defining moment that helped me clarify my purpose. And I'm very fortunate because some of you who know me know that I often talk about my mom, Vivian Peak, because I wouldn't be where I am today without that wonderful Vivian Peak, who sold real estate very successfully to help me go after my dreams in New York City. And I worked hard there and I honed my craft and I built my own success little by little. And now, as I've said, I've had films that have been seen by millions of people or even played like in India to millions of people at the Gandhi, or probably that was thousands, at the Gandhi Film Festival over Mumbai on a really big screen. And as an artist, I can tell you, knowing that was happening on my time zone, I just felt complete. When you get your artwork seen and heard, we are communicators and it makes us feel complete. But it wasn't always like that at all. I was raised in the inner city of Detroit and I had a very loving class there. In fact, I made a hit movie about them called Colorblind that was on PBS. And they were just kids I never forgot. And we moved to the suburbs at some point in my life. And suddenly I was the new girl. And I wasn't liked. And there was this mean clique of girls who called me all kinds of names. I remember one day that I had curly hair and they put gum wrapper in my hair and laughed. I was so self-conscious. I used to trip over my own feet going down the hall. And I used to come home and sit on my bed and say, how the heck did I go from having this wonderful life in Detroit with all my loving classmates to having this nightmare? And at 13, I didn't know what to do. So I saw on the board that they were going to have this Christmas talent show. And I knew, like Linda, I could sing. And my voice sounded about 30 years old when I was 13. And I got this idea, I'm going to sing a really loving song. I'm going to sing Barbara Streisand's People. You know, People Who Need People. One of my favorite songs. So I go and audition, and oh my God, I got in. Got chosen. And they put me last in the show. And we were all sitting across the stage at this school talent show. And my heart was beating faster and faster. And I looked out into the audience. Remember when our stages were in gyms? Maybe they're still that way. And the bleachers went up to the ceilings. Well, I looked out there. I was so nervous. It was like wall to wall people. And over to my left was that clique of girls, and one of them was chewing gum. Like, I double dare you to get up and sing. Then I looked to my right, and I saw my mom and my little Italian grandpa. My mom gave me a nod of support, and I knew I could do it. And I got up to the microphone. It was my turn, and my voice rang out. Remember how it echoed in those days in the gym? And I finished, and there was dead silence. And one person clapped, it was probably my mom, and then another, and another. And then more people joined in and clapped. And all of a sudden, the whole gym was clapping. And I bowed and I went back to my seat. And I looked over to my left. One of the mean girls was clapping. And then one of the teachers waved me back to my seat. I'm not my seat, the mic. And I went up there. And all of a sudden, in a surreal moment, in this school that had been so unfriendly to me, the whole gym rose to their feet. And I remember I could hardly take it. I mean, it was only 13, but I could hardly take it because 1 minute I felt very hated. And suddenly I was being loved. And it was in that moment that my purpose as an artist came to me. And it was bring love to the masses. I knew it at that moment. And from that moment on, my life changed forever. I remember I could hardly leave the gym. Everybody started filing out. And I took a minute and caught my breath. And I went out the back door where the stage was. And one of the meanest girls, remember her last name was Farmer. And she came up to me and she goes, "That was pretty good." And do you know, from that moment on, no one in that middle school ever made fun of me ever again. And when they spilled into my high school, nobody ever made fun of me again. And I knew that my life had been profoundly changed. And it was a big deal for me. And finding your purpose as an artist, even if you say, "Oh, Pam, I'm not really doing the arts right now," you might have a purpose that you forgot long ago that's unique to you, but it's yours. And you never know when it can get tapped. Many of you know that I'm an acting teacher. I'm a director and a producer, but I love to teach. And remember, you guys, when we were all going through COVID and we were locked down for like, how long was it? Was it 30, 45 days? Remember that period when we couldn't go out of our house nationally? And I sat here in my little office in Orange County, California, and I thought, hell, if I go through this anymore, I'm going to be so depressed, I'm not going to put up with myself. So I decided to get a tent over my patio. I know I was brave because we didn't even hardly know what COVID was then. And I'll buy these plastic shields for people so we don't spit on one another. And I'll position them all around my backyard, totally socially distanced. And I'll teach acting. And 45 brave souls that summer of 2020 came in, they wore masks, sat in the back, and then on stage, they put the shield on. And I taught acting to 45 more people. But there was one man who sat over to my left, and he was very quiet. He was a middle-aged guy, and he didn't say much. And one day, months into teaching, because they were there for like 6 months, And one girl said, well, I only came to be an actress because you were the only one that was open. And I said, okay, now she's a really great actress, right? But this one guy sat there quietly, and he'd get up and whisper, and it was good. But one day, it was on a Sunday, his class was, and I was delivering a lecture, and I said something like, sometime you can create a work of art so good that you feel like you're reaching towards God. And in that moment, I felt a shift to my left. Actually, I heard something, but not with my ears. It was like I heard boom, but it was like I heard it with my heart. And I looked over at this shy guy and I said, excuse me, did I say something to offend you? And he went, oh no. And I just went on. A short time later, I realized that this shy guy, from that moment on, started writing incredible poetry. And a few months later, he showed it to me. And one of them was so beautiful, I couldn't get out of my chair. My legs got weak. It was something like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. And he started creating some very interesting things. And we'll leave that there for now. But isn't it true that as artists, they call us creators, originators, creators? And we're sort of echoing the spiritual, call it God, call it the divine, call it the universe, whatever you want to call it. This brings me to a couple favorite quotes that I'd like Ray to put up. One of my most favorite quotes is from my favorite opera composer, Puccini. How many of you know Puccini? You know Puccini, who wrote Madame? Yeah, Patty. How many of you love Puccini? I do. Anyway, he wrote Madame Butterfly, Tosca, all these beautiful Turandot, all these beautiful things. And Ray, if we can put that up there, he said of Madame Butterfly, the music of this opera was dictated to me by God. I was merely instrumental in putting it on paper and communicating it to the public. Sometime as artists, and Gregory, I bet you felt this way when you painted, and you too, Susie, and probably Linda when she drums, we can get in a zone that is so up there and soaring and out there. It's almost like communicating with the divine. And this next quote, I bet you'll recognize. This is from the composer of Handel's Messiah. George Frederick Handel wrote, you know, the Messiah that we hear at Christmas? He wrote in tears as he wrote the Messiah, Handel said, I do think I saw all of heaven before me, and I touched the face of God himself. And then he wrote beautiful things from the Messiah, like the Hallelujah chorus. And I know that my Redeemer liveth, and a bunch of other things like that. And Ray, if you can come back to me now, that would be great. I want to stop, and I want to ask you this question. Whether you consider yourself an artist or just a creative person, how would you word your purpose for your creation? What's your purpose for it? You don't have to tell me because I know it's personal. And even some of you who are artists, what's your purpose for it? How would you define it? I have one friend who says, I just want to make them laugh. I want to entertain and make them laugh. And that's his purpose. It's all different. It's all different for all of us. But that's the first key, as we said before, recognizing and clarifying your basic purpose as an artist. And Ray, are we back on me? I think so. By discovering my basic purpose, when I sang that song in front of the entire school and I said, it's bringing love to the masses, I had reorganized and changed my entire life. Very powerful. I felt more aligned with my heart when I voiced that. I could feel it. Think about what's possible if you can have full clarity on your purpose, your true reason for being an artist. Because when you see your purpose clearly and you know where you're going, you can start walking that path towards that goal more and more. Finding and following our basic purpose as an artist can be a powerful change. Now, you might say, there's people that I've asked, what's your purpose? And they go, don't ask that. I know someone like that. In fact, someone in my family, very unfortunately, had her career stopped. I'm just going to say it by a psycho teacher, very abruptly. And I can't ask her that question. It's too painful. So in that case, I'd hand you the second purpose first. We get some of that pain off. You might say, well, I go to look for my artistic purpose, but it's a little murky and a little confusing. Maybe not painful, but a little confusing. And sadly, that's way too common. Let's go to the second key, Ray. And it might not be what you think it is. Let me tell you, it's an important one. It may be the most important one. You ready? See it? It's closing the door on suppression and negativity coming at you as an artist or about your art. Closing the door on suppressive vibes, comments, negativity coming at you. And you have that choice to close the door. Ray, if you can come back to me for a minute, because I want to make this next statement. And it might be one of the most important I make in this little talk. Did you know that we artists are magnets to suppressive, negative people? I'm going to say it again. We artists are magnets to suppressive, negative people. It's so important I put a picture up. Look at that, because I wanted you to remember it. We're the magnet, and see all those little minions down there? Those are the suppressive people. You know, once I was flying back from Florida, where I had been producing and directing dinner theater for quite a while, and I was put in first class, and I sat next to Superstar's husband, and he knew about this. I promised him I'd never tell anyone who his wife was. But you'd know her in a second, even in the top tier of the 1970s. And he said that he was concerned about her because she's so talented, she doesn't see suppressive people coming at her or putting her down because she's got so much life. And that when she rose higher and higher, new echelon of suppressive people came at her. So he was trying to work with her to see that. So she'd understand, guard yourself. Like Julia Cameron said, our artist is a child and we must protect it. Ray, if you can come off of that for a second, that would be great. But I had to show you that picture. Now, why do you think it is that suppressive people come at talented people? Remember the story of Amadeus about Mozart? Why do you think it's like that? Well, stop and think about it a minute. If we are the people that are more alive and we have more life than your average guy, and we're spilling it out on canvases, singing, dancing, writing, all that stuff. Now look at a suppressive person. How much life do they have left, not next. How much life do they have left? They're kind of down on life. So like a vampire, if we can put that slide up to emphasize, like a vampire, they are coming for our lifeblood. Look at this poor artist. Kind of looks like Tom Hanks, doesn't he, a little bit? And that's why suppressive people come in on artists. They need our life because something went wrong in their life. And suddenly they're putting other people down. They don't feel enough. So they're going for other people's life. And it's a sad situation. You might go, oh, Pam, you're just exaggerating. Well, I'm going to give you a few examples because it's a little more widespread than we think. Ray, if you could put up that picture of somebody we all know and love, at least if you're over, what, 45? This is who? Young Elvis Presley. He was a good boy. He loved his mama and sang wonderful songs. He had the whole nation rocking and developed rock and roll. And he was a wonderful person right here. And something started happening. I remember the day I was in New York that I heard that Elvis had died. And didn't we all feel like we did about other stars? Oh my God, we lost someone way too soon who was a very bright artist and light. Let's put up a picture of Elvis in the concert right before he died. Look at his eyes. And you might go, oh, come on, Pam, he's 30 years older. He's heavier. It's not just that. Elvis Presley had a doctor who was a suppressive person, who gave him way too many drugs, got him hooked on drugs, and under the care of this doctor that lived at his house, he went out because of those drugs. I can think of another person who, oh God, one of the most talented stars we'll ever have. Ray, can we put him up? There's young Michael Jackson. Circa 19, I bet you, because I know my Michael Jackson history, circa 1979. Look at the life in his eyes. Look at how full of youth he was. And like Elvis, things happened in his life. That's how he looked just before he died. And again, like Elvis, it was a person he trusted, his doctor, giving him an anesthetic that you don't give outside of a hospital to be able to bring someone back. That doctor was convicted, I believe. Wasn't he convicted, you guys? That was the way the trial came out, I believe so. But he killed Michael Jackson. A doctor, someone that he should have trusted, snuffed out his life. And now this next picture, oh my God, let's take a look. I remember Sunday nights in Detroit. Couldn't wait till this movie came on, The Wizard of Oz, right? And it's Judy Garland as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. What a divine talent. She could sing, she could dance, and she started with Mickey Rooney. My mom used to make us watch all their movies when we were little. They tap danced, and they were always going to make a show. That interested me. Let's make a show. And they were dynamic together. And somewhere on the set in the 1940s, some suppressive person lurked, and he said, hey, they got to go to bed, and they're all wired. Give them a downer. So at 13 and 14 years old, they gave Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland downer pills. And in the morning, when they couldn't get up, that same clique of people or person on the set said, give them an upper. They got to wake up and we need them to be there. Come on. Downers and uppers, uppers and downers, to the point that both of them got addicted and both of them ended up on heroin. Mickey Rooney fought his heroin addiction and beat it later in life. He lived to a ripe old age, but Judy Garland didn't. We lost her way too young. Ray, if you can put up that picture. There she is right before she died. A lot of life had been taken, sucked out of her by God knows what pushers. Every pusher is a suppressive person. But suppressives, well, they come in all different flavors, let me tell you. In my program where I work with artists, we go back to those that feel they were stopped when they were younger, or they're stopped now and they can't figure it out. And we look at what suppression might have come in on you. Who might have put you down? What might have happened there? I remember once I had a high school drama teacher, 9th and 10th grade, and I loved drama. She could tell I had a passion for it. Every time I went out for an audition, I got 0 parts, and she was casting. It wasn't until my 20s that I said, oh my God, she was suppressive to me. She didn't want to give me parts. I was a lot younger than her, and she didn't want to give me parts. There, Ray, if we could come off this picture, that would be great. There's one thing that can kill an artist and kill our purpose as an artist. Want to know what it is? It's like kryptonite to us. It's invalidation. Invalidation. How invalidated can an artist get, or any person get? That means how squashed, how held back, how put down can they get? Dead. Don't take this lightly. Even if you think of going back to an art, they kind of creep in on us. Look at Selena. It was somebody in her inner circle that did her in. And I got to tell you guys, if I can confess, I crawled out of New York City. I was on a soap opera. And at the age of 21, after I studied acting, I got on a soap opera. And that got canceled. And I started doing another show. And a woman was going to put up money for the show, and she ended up being suppressive. I got really sick. She was putting me down covertly each time we'd meet and kind of pulling the rug out from under me. I gave it all up and went back to Detroit. And I've been roadkill several times, but I found a beautiful toolbox that can help us pick ourselves up and go on again. And it can help you spot suppression right when it's starting to come in on you and make a choice. Do I want that person in my inner circle, or just keep them a little bit farther back? Pop a yes in the chat if you've ever had negative thoughts of self-doubt when you've done something new or done something creative. Ever have any self-doubt thoughts come up? Pop a yes in the chat if that's true. Okay, good. That happens to everybody. Thoughts like, hey, if you put your art out there, they're going to think it's really stupid and they're going to laugh. Or nobody's going to like my work. What am I doing? What could I be thinking of? Who made me think I could do this? Do you know, I've produced some really big events and really big shows. And once in a while, years ago, I used to stand backstage and go, holy God, what made me think I could ever do this? I've got thousands of people doing this, right? It just comes in on us. Well, in my program, we acknowledge something, that those negative thoughts that trigger on us are the sum total that's come at you in the past. Suppressive parent, or somebody who just didn't get that you were an artist. That can act like suppression too. A parent that just doesn't get you, right? And they just kind of squashed what you love to do. Well, our mind is a force field of pictures. You might have heard this before, but it's quite true that our pictures are all around us, our memories. In fact, I used to ask my grandpa when he was in his 80s, hey, Grandpa, how old were you when you came over from Italy? And he'd go like this, let me see, Pammy. And he'd look around and look at his different pictures, right? It was so delightful. But we have pictures that we're taking every 1/125th of a second. Those are our memories. But there's a hitch. Every time we experience something emotionally painful, a breakup, a death, a horrible argument, or physical pain, there's unconsciousness, varying degrees of unconsciousness connected to those painful moments. So when somebody was putting us down, if it was a really big put down, it lays in a whole new unconscious memory or semi-unconscious memory that stays just below our awareness level. So some new suppressive comes along and says, you're not going to put that out, are you? And boom, you feel these negative feelings in your own universe. That's just a stirring up of the ones from the past. And those can be eliminated little by little. In fact, a lot of times, the more we get on the path of our basic purpose and the more we win, the more those feelings of lack of confidence and self-doubt start dropping away as artists. So if you've had continuously a negative parent growing up, a best friend who was always putting you down. I had one of those since kindergarten. My mother used to say, get away from her. And I didn't till I was 21. And then my life and my career went boom. It was amazing when I spotted, why am I letting her put me down? That's when I got on the soap opera and my life like really turned around. In fact, I'm going to tell you something really personal. I've never said this before online. This girl had me so convinced that I was ugly that I had 0 dates and I was 19 and 20 years old. The minute I spotted, she's got some of these suppressive characteristics. Maybe my mom was right that she's always bursting my bubble. I asked her to leave and we broke up. We were friends since kindergarten. She was like a sister. I said yes to 8 guys in one weekend. I had 8 dates. I don't even know. I had to call 7 of them back and say, sorry, I can't go out with you. Something's come up. And I'm like, how the hell did I say yes to 8 guys? But my life was open because the suppression was, she and I were roommates. And she was always prettier than me, went out with guys more than I did. Well, ended up I had nobody till I got her out of my life. So basically, also, a suppressive person can be someone who should have been encouraging you like a teacher. And instead, they were covertly or overtly, openly or closedly, putting you down. I want all the guys here, and I think that's only 2. Imagine yourself, Gregory, do this. Imagine yourself in a white suit with a white fedora hat and white patent leather shoes. Got it? And all the ladies here, hold on. Imagine yourself in a white sequin gown with a white hat with maybe some feathers in it, and girls, white stiletto heels that we all love, okay? That is your creativity. That white suit represents your creativity and your art. And you're going to go out on the town and unveil it. Now, you get up on a stage. Come with me a minute. What does your dress look like? See yourself on that stage. Get up on that stage, and you're shining up there, and people are going, wow. And all of a sudden, Ray, somebody comes running up and dumps red paint all over your white outfit. And it looks like that. I couldn't believe I found that picture online. That's what it looks like. That's what negative people do to our creation. If that white outfit represents our artistry, our creation, our communication, they slather us with negativity. So what happens when you go to look down at that outfit you're wearing? All you see is their red paint. Your dream has been covered up by somebody else's negative thoughts. And they kind of take control of our dream. So that's when I ask people, what was your purpose? And it's not crystal clear. They've had some negativity. Some artists have not experienced this, but most of them have. I have done so many artist empowerment sessions. That's a free session that I do with people where they've told me that they had a parent that railroaded them from the arts into doing something they hated. The dad said, no, we got to get a real job. So you're going to be an accountant. One of them was made to be an accountant. And she's a brilliant writer. And now she's outlived and ran all of them. All the suppression is gone. And she's returned to her writing again. But that's what it looks like when we get doused with negativity. So basically, I want to go over 3 kinds of suppressive people very quickly. And then we'll come back to something else. Ray, if you could put up the picture. This is, I'm just going to go over 3 kinds. This is the kind of suppressive person. They come in all different flavors that gives you sympathy and says, oh, honey, you don't have to become an artist because we'll love you anyway. You don't have to practice. Doesn't matter. You don't have to sing, do any of that. And by the time you're done talking to her, you don't feel like doing anything. Ever run into somebody like that with the syrupy sweet and they make you feel like, bleh? And then the next guy, oh, I've met him a few times, especially living in New York. It's a cackling, no sympathy guy that says, what do you want to do your art for? They're going to laugh at you. Ha, they're going to think you're stupid. I've run into this guy in anything you've done, whether it's art or any new idea you've had. Now, the third one, I think some of you are old enough to remember what movie this came from. What movie is that from? Psycho. This is what Amadeus run into. Remember that? The kind that has the smile on his face and the knife behind his back. That's covert hostility or passive aggressive. And boy, do they know how to pull an artist under. They'll get in there as your best friend. And the next thing you know, you got nothing left and you don't feel like doing your art anymore. Ray, if you could come back to me, that would be great. You know, the more knowledge we have about suppressive people in our lives, as you expand, it's going to happen. You do an art show, they're going to come in on you sooner or later. But the more knowledge you have and the more you armor yourself up, the more you can fend this off and nip it in the bud before it happens. Because artists can't thrive with a lid on them. We need freedom. We need a safe space. That's one thing I always vowed in my acting classes and on my sets as a director. I will have a safe space for my artists to express themselves. We're going to go on to the third key in just a minute. But I want to tell you something. You remember that guy I talked about a little while ago who sat quietly on my patio? And I made that statement about God and he started writing all this poetry. Well, he's really turned a corner. And it was 3 years ago today, that he walked into my class. It was a Sunday in 2020. And he's now not only written poetry, but he's got 30 pieces of art. He makes these beautiful clocks and he's premiering them at the end of the month in front of 1,200 people. And some of them I know. And I got to tell you, it's such a win to be his coach and to be his friend because they stayed in his closet for like 8-9 years. It was amazing. And I get to be there when he unveils them to 1,200 people. And he's such a prolific writer. He started a podcast and he talks about things about life. And I'm one of the producers and directors. Thank you, Patty. It is a big celebration. I call him my star student because he's just, boom, just out there. And he made that change. I coached him. He found that purpose that day I said that. But I also coached him, and I have to tell you, of all the people I've ever coached, he was the person struggling with most self-doubt and invalidation from a very long abusive ex-marriage. And as he started realizing what suppression was, like a flower, things just started opening up. And he went from being totally shut down, boom, out there. And I have no doubt that after a while, his podcast is going to go national. It's very exciting. Artists that work with me find the same things as that. They find confidence, their art or their marketing. I work with people to market their great arsenal of art, to get it out there, to touch people's hearts with their art. And that confidence can spill over once you start getting successes in many areas of your life. I had one woman realize after her confidence came back and she got her art out there, she goes, oh my God, I've been dating toxic men for over a decade. Why am I dating toxic men? Why don't I choose a winner instead? Because she started winning. She realized she could see the difference between a toxic guy that always hurt her or dumped her, or somebody that was a winner like she had become. So when you get on a path to market your art, get it out there and have your voice be heard, or do your art again, your feet can walk on a whole new path. I recommend you consider joining me for a free artist empowerment session. It's 40 minutes long. All you have to do is just sign up on my Calendly link. And in that, we're going to make a mini program for you, if that's what you'd like. I want to hear all about the art that you do, the purpose you have for it, and we're going to start brainstorming. How are we going to get you out there? How are you going to share your art with the world? That's what an artist empowerment session is. I want to hear what your biggest challenges are. What stops you mentally or makes you pull back? Because I have tools that help artists break free from those chains and get out there again. And you might say, oh, Pam, I don't have time for that. Well, I got news for you. This society and this world does not make time for artists. Sometimes we have to invest in ourselves and we have to push our schedule around to make time to write, time to paint, time to act, whatever it is. Make time for your art. And you might say, I don't even have the money to buy the paints put on the canvas. Well, I can tell you this, that every time I make a movie, it's magic and money opens up to me. Things open up to me. And every time I do, there's these serendipitous things or people walk into my life who introduce me to somebody that wants to put money into a film. Or people just show up that I need to be a camera person and they're the right person. When you're on your art purpose, isn't money a flow? When you're aligned with your heart and on your money purpose, your flows open up. And I've seen this happen time and time again. Like this guy that's going to sell his clocks and I know he's going to sell at least 100 or 200 if he gets them in front of 1,200 people that are his audience. And he's always said, right now he's designing pools and it has some physical labor to it and a lot of headaches. And he says, I don't want to do that anymore. If only I could do my art. Well, I have a feeling next time I do the speech next month that I'll be telling them, and he made a whole bunch of money. So following your purpose and finding the right time to do it can open that up. It breaks my heart to see artists who have been stopped and are all bottled up. And when they hear their voice clearly and they remove their stops and blocks, and you start communicating to audiences through your art, that's when lucky breaks. I don't care. Call it magic, call it serendipity. I see it happen all the time with the artists that I work with. So I invite you to sign up for a free artist empowerment session. Ray, if we could just for a minute, then we're going to go back to the third key. If we could put that page up there, that's my Calendly page. Oh, no, it's not that one, Ray. That's the third key. We'll get that in a minute. It's the one at the end. Could you put up that one? It's, nope, not that one either. He'll get, there it is. Okay, snap a picture of this. If you'd like to meet with me, it's totally free and there's no strings attached. But we'll just talk about your art or marketing your art and just go in on my calendar. I'm not here next week, but I have a few spaces open Friday, a couple on Saturday, and then in 2 weeks from now. And I'd love to talk to you if you'd like to meet with me and explore how we can open things up for you and get your art out there. And now, Ray, if we can go back to the third key, that would be wonderful. Can we go back to that one? The third key, you saw it. Not him. We don't need to see him again. There it is. Keep your eye on the mountain. Ray, put up that picture of the mountain again, would you? The physical mountain. Okay, let's end by doing this little exercise. See the top of that mountain? I want you to ask yourself, close your eyes as an artist. I want you to ask yourself, what does your success look like? If you're a painter, maybe it's having your art featured in the New York Times. Maybe it's a big art show and people are standing there giving you applause. Put that on the, close your eyes and put that on the top of the mountain. If you're a performer, maybe you're standing on a big stage and you feel the audience tip towards you, or it's being broadcast on TV, or you're a singer and your voice rings out and you're sharing that with thousands of people. That's the top of your mountain. Know what it looks like. Why? Because that's your compass. Every time someone or something knocks you off, or you take a loss on your way up that mountain, you can look up at the top of the mountain. I always say, keep your eye on the mountain. Let that be your compass, your dream. Know exactly in detail what it looks like. That will steady you and help you know what your path will be. Again, I work with artists to clear away stops and blocks, any suppression, and also to forge a path to get whatever your creation is, be it a book, be it a screenplay, whatever it is, we're going to get it out to the masses. So I hope to see you for an artist empowerment session if you'd like to meet with me. And Ray, if you could put on our little music. Because I want to say, if you do work with me, I always give you my heart. All my students know that's true. I care about what you do. I care about what you do, whether you work with me or not. That's just the way I am, because I love artists. And what I wrote in the chat at the beginning is true. Artists are the most valuable people. If it wasn't for us, this godforsaken planet would have blown itself up years ago. I can give you examples of that. But the beautiful movies we watch, the songs we share, that's what holds us together as a society. And the artists dream our dream and put a future there. I want to thank you for being here tonight. And most of all, I want to thank you for being an artist. Thank you for being here. Bye. Ray, if we can put that link up one more time, that would be great. Thanks. Hope to see you. Bye. Love you all.